I want to start this podcast off with a short story. And I believe it's the kind of story that, or anecdote more so, that speaks to the divide in America, very clearly. But it was a Saturday morning at about 7 a.m. And this is maybe, I want to say, maybe last week. So I'm in need of some cough drops. So I drive to a corner bodega, normal corner bodega in Newark, New Jersey. And, I'm thinking, man, I'm going to be in and out. Okay, at 7 o'clock in the morning, Saturday, not a lot of people moving around. I'm cool, just need some cough drops. So pull over right on the corner, jump out the car, walk into the bodega. Normal. And then suddenly, as I'm, fumbling over a couple of dollars, from my pocket, opening the door, trying to keep my pants up, and I make it into the, I look up, and I am in awe of, what I see. Literally, it is as quiet as a pin dropping in the bodega. And I notice that there are like a dozen kids, all, early elementary age. And they're all standing amidst two older teenagers that, one teenager, she was with a little girl with her, and I think they were just together, and, they were, standing near the, near the area. There was an area where they, sliced meats and made sandwiches, and I think, they were waiting on a sandwich, and, there was a boy, teenager, he was, pretty much, the drill sergeant. He was giving direction to all of the, all of the children. But, there's, chips all over the place with these kids. They got, juices and candies, and they're sitting and standing with such, precision. It is silent, and they are all holding on to, mountains of change, and, just in this moment, I'm witnessing what a lot of America is unable to see, the manifestation of what came out of the struggles of Black people in this country. Okay, so think about it. I'm at this hood bodega. I am witnessing children who, in a moment, and you had this, Spanish, mommy. She was, the one that was servicing all of the children. She, very patient, very, very kind, and, taking each, inquisition, as, these children ask, many questions, in terms of pricing, how much is this, how much is that, that sort of thing. And I thought about the Mike Bloombergs of the world. These are the kids who a generation ago, 2 generations ago, were the victims of, the children of those victims of, your racist policies like stop and frisk. This billionaire class of Americans that live in the stratosphere. They live in the stratosphere. They don't class in America seems to be separated based off of income. Class isn't separated based off of character. Because if we focus on character as the great medium of comparison, then it'd be the American who expresses or exhibits the better kindness and the better character, that would reign atop society. But that's not how this society is organized. This society is organized from the top down, so the billionaires don't have to play by the rules. Okay, we just experienced a fiasco. I'll use that word, a fiasco, when it comes to the impeachment process of President Donald Trump. We watched the Democratic Party put all of its chips up on this man being removed from office, knowing, this is the crazy part, knowing that he was going to be acquitted in the Senate. This isn't, American politics, has followed almost a very similar pattern, at least since my consciousness awoke, maybe a few decades ago. Saying, we watch these patterns. And in watching these patterns, we already know, especially when the outcome has been delivered. No one believed Donald Trump was going to win the presidency. No one. And when he did win the presidency, only a few of us saw the rise of Donald Trump. I was one of those people who saw the rise of Donald Trump. I saw it. As clear as day, I saw it. When he stood on that stage with all of those Republican candidates running for the presidency, there was something about the pulse of America, where we were as a country, that, coming off of 8 years of Barack Obama, Black people enjoyed those 8 years under Barack Obama as the president. We walked around talking shit. We walked around talking shit. Anytime we, came across white people, it was my president black. We was wilding. And we laced our pockets during the 8 years of Obama. We saw the rise of, Black prosperity from the perspective of only the higher classes, folk, where economy fuels the distinction. Those are the individuals who benefited the most under Barack Obama, where the vast majority of Black people continue to live in the crevices of American streets, city streets that we sought refuge in, running from the South, in an era of lynching, that 100 years, where the terrorism of white supremacy was in open court throughout the South. There was a Southern justice that dominated in the South. You could be a white man, run up in the home of a child, to get a child, shoot that child in the head and dump him in the Tallahatchie River. That was the form of Southern jungle justice that pervaded in the South. Had it not been for the bravery of individuals like Ida B. Wells, we wouldn't be so lucky today. And I'm not even going to say luck. That's the wrong word to use. We wouldn't be here today in position to challenge American morality, because that has always been something that has been on our side, the moral standard. Harriet Beecher Stowe saw that black morality, in her usage of the character of Tom, Uncle Tom. Had it not been for Uncle Tom's Cabin, we probably would still today be debating the slave question. Not only would we still be probably debating the slave question had it not been for, Harriet Beecher Stowe's novel. And yes, it was a novel. Fiction character that stood in representation of the slave in real time. Had it not been for those events, like Ida B. Wells, highlighting the reality that, it wasn't black men that were savage, okay? White people tried to argue that black men needed to be lynched because, they were sexual predators, and, they were problematic when it came to their, understanding of relation with white women. So he had to be lynched. He had to be castrated. And that's what they did. And, they celebrated it. How do you explain mass, postcards of mass groups of whites, standing over the charred body of a black, man or woman lynched or child? How do you explain that level of satisfaction, community satisfaction? If not for the fact that they felt justified in what they did. They felt justified in that action, those actions. Okay? So justified that they, it was an event. They gave out flyers. Could you imagine that? A flyer going out, public lynching of, such and such, for the crime of, violating a white woman. Could you imagine that? Think about it. Could you imagine that? So, people like Ida B. Wells who expose the realities that, no, these black people are dealing with a vicious attack dog, a vicious American hell-bent on establishing dominance over a group of people. We see that played out today in many ways, driving. White drivers, especially males and women, older women are very aggressive on the road driving. They drive almost as if the roads are theirs. We're in a 50, we're doing 55, and you're behind me I'm a black man, and I do any, you know, any degree over the speed limit. The black man is subject to being pulled over. We don't get to, ride at 70 miles an hour and 55, and you're behind a black driver blowing your horn, and then you speed around them. And this is the relationship blacks have, had in relation to, whites in this government. So to be in a place today where, billionaires don't have to follow the rules. Billionaires, and we're watching a lot of them fall right now. R. Kelly, millionaire. Weinstein, millionaire. Epstein, millionaire. These are millionaires. Billionaires. America's their playground. Oh, I don't have to follow the normal electoral process that everyone else does. Join the primary, establish the votes to get on the ballot, asking for donations, putting out ads, the process from the ground up. We've had several. We go through several debates, official candidates. There were like 29, 24 candidates, vying for the Democratic nomination. We watched, from Cory Booker to Kamala Harris drop out of the race over time. And then the pissed off billionaire, throws up $400 million and buys his way onto the ballot. And buys his way onto a debate stage. The same billionaire who, said out of his own mouth, and you could hear the vitriol in his voice. You could hear the rage in his voice. Who's doing those, who's committing all the crimes? Just stop him, frisk him, throw him against the wall. Threw Khalif Broder against the wall. Innocent kid, thrown on Rikers Island with wolves. What did you think was going to happen? What do you think was going to happen? So, and then this recent, surge of black voters, who thrusts, Joe Biden into the front runner position, after the Iowa fiasco of, stealing, the thunderous momentum that comes from an Iowa win. If it wasn't for Barack Obama's win in Iowa, he would not have been president because black people would not have supported him. Black people were supporting Hillary Clinton, especially black women. And then all of a sudden this, Negro, wins Iowa. That's when we realize, whoa, there's another group. There's another class of black folk out here. Establishment blacks. Who are at the top of power. We couldn't believe it. And then when it happened, that momentum from Iowa thrust Barack Obama all the way to the presidency. That what was supposed to happen with Bernie Sanders from the Democratic perspective. Bernie Sanders, who won Iowa, should have been propelled so the question begs an answer. How is politics, so corrupted, so openly? So, going back to my story, my anecdote, that, I'm using to launch this new podcast. Walking into that corner bodega in the middle of the hood on a Saturday morning at 7 o'clock, thinking that, the store, was quiet and empty, only to discover 15 children from that neighborhood with their coins and their last, probably, patiently purchasing high-priced, chips. You ever been in one of those bodegas? I bet you billionaire, Bloomberg, hasn't been in one of those bodegas in a long time. Where the roots of the people lie. That's where the people are. And what the people's conditions are and what the people live under. We have one of the largest poor populations in the world. In the richest country in the world. One of the richest countries in the world. Rich with resources, that wealth all of us seem to be so mesmerized by. Even though, there's a tsunami, headed right towards every landmass because a comet just hit, the middle of the ocean. So that's what I feel like this is the era of. You got certain Negroes and certain, people, whites, whoever, scrambling around, trying to hoard resources for their own betterment, moving toward a future that, has us all, noticing or witnessing our, mutual fragility, as the planet sits in crisis. What a political cartoon that would be. Some guy in the attic storing away, hiding money all over the place while, there's a rising flood and everybody at the bottom of the house is drowning. Or the Titanic, where they only built enough lifeboats, for the rich, and everyone else, was planned casualties of, what, the business-minded world would say is only business. Well, there's America for you. It's only business. Those children who, I just saw a post in a group on Facebook, where a teacher was complaining about, feeling threatened by children in schools, and they're being threatened not to come to work. And reading many of the posts, you can see how, we separate based off of resources. Those individuals who are chiming in, who have a stake in the system, they have a planted stake in the system. They're very optimistic. But the ones who, are struggling the most are very pessimistic. This seems to be, the way character and morality plays out in the culture today. Those same children who are tossed to the side, who are labeled, special needs, who are, marginalized in schools, who are subject to social gentrification, where, the authenticity of who they are and how they develop isn't as important as, streamlining their behavior, so they are better or easily controlled. Watching those children so disciplined and so focused and so aware and so strategic, I literally stepped back in awe, folded my hands, and just sat watching all of them in mesmerized. I literally watched every single child purchase what they needed, walk out of the store. Every single child was gone by the time I asked, for my cough drops. I would like to welcome everyone to, the opening monologue of this, podcast series I'm launching today called One Angry Black Republican. And the purpose of this new podcast is to, really share the frustration of not just the black, family member in America, who seems to, constantly be Harry Pottered, tucked away in the basement, hidden from the family, the Cinderellas of the world. Black people in America, and we didn't need to hear Bloomberg say this, but it was highly ironic, that, the black man has been screaming systematic racism for, forever, at least all of my conscious life. We've been screaming this idea of the systemic racism. The black man is under attack, knock it off with all of that. It's the man talk. I mean, we've experienced that, the last, several years, those of us, who are committed to the struggle, no matter what we face. So to hear all of these, candidates running for president, talk about this issue of repairing the damage done to the black community, black men specifically, who are probably the most marginalized today. Okay. I mean, I've watched, black women stand in power, in the last decade. Okay. We are the ones falling behind. We're the ones who Obama gave an entire speech on about being absent from the community, being absent from homes, and being the reason why, there's so many issues relative to the black community. So, this, particular podcast, as a, recent addition to the Republican Party, that was a very emotional and difficult, transition, to make, especially, coming from a history of being labeled this, black identity extremist, teacher in the community, to joining the Republican Party. That, is one for the history books. But when you're a loyalist, okay, and I'm loyal to my family. Okay, so when I'm thinking out, any trajectory that I'm going to involve myself with, or anything I'm going to involve myself with, I think out the trajectory of it, for months, like the wolf watching the bait, and hesitant before striking. Okay, becoming a Republican put me in a backlash. Okay, this backdraft of vitriol and rage that comes from a black community that has identified one as treacherous. Bill Cosby experienced that when he went on his rant about the black family, which we should have just listened to. But, we tend to be emotional, and that emotionalism tends to lead to the illogical. It was illogical of the Democratic Party placing such a huge investment in, trying to impeach President Donald Trump. Okay. you know, personally, I believe the Democratic Party is so corrupt today that, I don't think it was coincidental that, black people took on the tip of the spear, when it comes to, trying to dismantle President Trump's, legal presidency. Okay, so, it is black rage right now that is fueling the Democratic Party. And it is walking the Democratic Party right off the cliff. Because in that rage and that clouded reality, we're not seeing the fact that, A, we're being used and we've been being used by the Democratic Party. So I am totally anti-Democrat right now. Okay, that's where I am. So with that being said, the only logical, choice, for an American participant, because there was once when, my biggest advocate, I was the biggest advocate, for open revolution. Even though that term itself, is so problematic in the grand scheme of things. Coming from that to advocating a concept of buying in, so to speak, buying into America. I am buying in to the country. And in buying into the country, one thing black people have not done, we've not given our vote to the Republican Party in recent years, at least 6 decades. We can say with fact that when you look at the crime bill that former President Clinton, put forth, when you look at what Bloomberg's Stop and Frisk did, when you look at, these in, collaboration, along with, Joe Biden's support, I see a Democratic Party that has exercised a very subtle racism that has literally, helped cripple our walk towards this, idea of, the accumulation of wealth on generational wealth that is being spoken of, so much by this party, having, it's like, having the carrot in one hand and the bankroll in another. And, you take the carrot and you give, the Democratic Party the reins of power, and then they walk away, until the next election cycle. Many of us in the hood talk about it when, during the election cycle, every 4 years, you see Democrats show up, with all these posters. I was shocked when I saw, posters, with people I thought were revolutionary, who have, under the Democratic, banner. I was shocked, but, this, secret society, Greek brotherhood of, Greek brotherhood of, whatever that has dominated black, power for, the last few decades. They're leading us behind a party that has no intent on honoring what it said and what it promised. So it only makes sense if we are going to strengthen the black vote moving forward. It only makes sense to be wise, and, it wasn't wise backing the impeachment of Donald Trump, knowing what the outcome was going to be, as it is not wise, okay? And I'm sorry that I'm not an optimistic type. I'm very pessimistic, especially after the experiencing the history in this country of black people, okay? It's almost insane to think that, this, the country that, brought us COINTELPRO, the country that, brought us the Trail of Tears, the country that, bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the country that, murdered Patrice Lumumba, the country that murdered, Amilcar Cabral, Malcolm X, Dr. King, Huey Newton led to the, the insanity that led to the, deaths of Huey Newton. Country that continues to keep Assata away from the family. This country that we have, fought, bled, and died for. It was black people that changed the Constitution. Black people. Black people changed the Constitution. Every immigrant group that comes into America, from the Nigerians to, the Cubans to the Mexicans, all should be paying homage to the African American. Because had it not been for our, fortitude and tenacity, we wouldn't be participating in the government at the levels we are today. Okay, so if we just eliminate this illogical emotionalism and strategize, so I'm putting forth the perspective that what we should be thinking about in terms of strengthening our vote as a people, especially a people who have lived through all of those moments. Jim Crow, we lived through, we fought through, was nothing. Okay, offering the Republican Party and offering Donald Trump an olive branch. Okay, sir, we're gonna stand behind your presidency, and we're gonna stand behind your party for the next 4 years because we already know you're gonna win. So here's what we want, to keep aligned with your party and to give you our vote. Let's take those large percentages and make a deal, so to speak. Make a deal. And then over the next 4 years, we get to examine the word provided to us, because we know what that democratic word look. We know the democratic word doesn't work. We know that. No matter how many times, our, paid, leaders, you can tell, when a leader is paid by someone because, their objectivity goes right out the window. They try to fight for the position. That's the capitalist, mentality. The capitalist mentality has us, purchasing, allowing ourselves to be purchased. That's what, 30 pieces of silver. Man, they killed the Christ. He turned down the crown thrice. Men from mice. Top Gun quad ice. Sometimes, within the midst of my rants. Okay, and that's basically, the nature of this podcast. Sharing some of that vitriol, some of that anger, while at the same time connecting with a party, that hasn't been traditional for us to support. Okay? Rant. We rant all the time. Facebook is one big rant. We have our lives. We have our practical day-to-day lives. And then we have our political lives, many of us. And, my day-to-day life is one thing. My political life is another. What I advocate, the theories I'm trying to build. Right now it's logical to make a strategic decision, a strategic move to support the Republican Party, support Donald Trump. Let's offer that olive branch. Let's get through these next 4 years. Let's take the lead in healing the country. Let me say that again. Let's take the lead in healing the country these next 4 years. Trying our best to work with Donald Trump and the Republican Party. And then we get to watch and see this unfold under the Republicans. Because if we come to the conclusion as a people, and I mean black people, if we come to the conclusion that America is fugazi, it doesn't work for us. America fugazi, it don't work for us. You know, we watch over and over again, you know, our relationship to white America, you know, have these chasms of problems. Anytime a black man is sitting in front of his home, you know, or his baby mama's home, you know, just happen to be in a white community, but, you know, some white woman could walk outside on her cell phone and interrogate this, you know, American, this human being. You know, what are you here for? Why are you here? And then actually have the, you know, the audacity to call the police, and then the police arrive. I mean, for that kind of, you know, America to exist in this, you know, it just reinforces that idea that there are two Americas already. So if there are already two Americas, and we're proving that we are in the second class place, and it doesn't matter how much money we got. Okay? Doesn't matter how much money we got, because you know what? You know. As black people in this country, if one of us is marginalized and oppressed, all of us are. Okay, so if our people, if we come to the conclusion that America no longer works for us, America doesn't work for us, then we have the responsibility, the duty to build our own country. And that's the ultimatum we give, you know, to Trump. It's like, listen, we're supporting the Republican Party because we're at our last straw. This is the last straw. Okay? This doesn't work, we're out. You know, so, you know, a recommitment to the Democratic Party right now is ludicrous. You know, they've already shown their card. They have already shown themselves. You know, I remember, you know, rest in, you know, peace, Amiri Baraka. But I remember hearing this from this man, from his own mouth. You know, as he spoke to me directly in this moment when I heard this. If you let a man kick you 4 times, he's only going to kick you 4 times. If you let a man kick you 3 times, he's only going to kick you 3 times. If you let a man kick you twice, he's only going to kick you twice. If you let a man kick you 1 time, he is only going to kick you 1 time. But if when a man goes to kick you, you break his fucking leg, he is never going to think about kicking you again. You see, that's the mentality I'm coming from. We have allowed the Democratic Party to kick us 4 times. We continue to allow the Democratic Party to kick us 4 times. I say we break the legs of the Democratic Party. We Brexit the Democratic Party. And we align ourselves with the party that is winning at this current moment. Because it is that important. You know, think about what people do for money. We had a whole damn song about it. What people do for money. What people do for money. We have a whole legacy of doing all kinds of things for money. We do. Okay? So let's do this for money. Let's negotiate with the Republican Party. Let's sit down with that great negotiator, President Donald Trump. Let's keep our eyes wide open during the next 4 years of from 2020 to 2024. Let's educate ourselves over the course of those 4 years. Let's pay attention to the political process over the course of those next 4 years. Let's get out of that, party and bullshit mentality. Because that's what I'm gonna chalk it up to the game. I'm gonna chalk it up to party and bullshit. Biggie, Biggie did it. One of the best, runs in hip hop. Biggie, party and bullshit. Because that seems to dominate our reality today. And that party and bullshit, could be in, we live to party and bullshit. Some of us live on a daily basis for it. Some of us, live on a yearly basis for it. But we have to start making concrete decisions that place us in situations where our emotional balance is in order. It makes no sense getting up every day to go to a job that you hate. When that misery and that, frustration is going to translate into misery and confusion for all those around us. And yes, certain things take sacrifice. I didn't think I was sacrificing my friend base by, articulating a reasonable, agenda based off of, the history we've been, subject to. So again, as an angry black man, one of the reasons, that this, particular podcast is important because many black men aren't allowed to express their outrage. Okay, black men expressing their rage usually translates into prison charges, or death. You saw what they did to Malcolm. Okay, you saw what they did there. Okay, so black male anger is a taboo. But that black male anger needs a platform. Okay, so I aim to bring to the podcast universe the authentic voice of black male anger. Under the auspices here of being Republican. Hence one, and so the title of this podcast is One Angry Black Republican. Okay, so I'm gonna run the show in pretty much 3 segments. One segment representing the indictment, so to speak. Where I will provide a monologue of whatever the week's anger rate points, the points of the week that sparked that black rage. For example, the killing last night of Nathaniel Woods Jr. Who was on death row in Alabama for his participation in the in the murder of 3 Alabama police officers. People like Kim Kardashian, even, Martin Luther King III, were, championing the family's struggle to get clemency from, Republican governor, Kay Ivey. Okay. Now, this has enraged the black community. The decision of Governor Ivey to grant clemency, to deny clemency and allow the execution to take place. Okay, the argument that was being made was, just a quick, snippet of the facts. A drug operation is in progress. Both defendants Spencer and Woods are running this place. 4 officers, come to investigate the drug operation. They're coaxed in by Woods and then gunned down by Spencer, who admitted to being the trigger man. Okay? He admitted it. Unlike the coward who, murdered Malcolm, the shotgunman who took out Malcolm. And I saw him. I stood right in front of him. And I questioned, that moment. And one of the brothers said to me, man, that's not something you want to deal with. Not something you want to deal with. I'll save that rage for another episode. But the point is, Governor Ivey, her argument was, since '83, they're, in legally, the law in Alabama says that, you don't have to pull the trigger. If you participate in any way in the murder of an officer of the law, you are subject to the same penalties. So this is one of those examples of displaced black rage. Black people are sitting here angry at the governor, for, making the decision to, allow the process to continue. When the real outrage, moving forward should be placed on the individuals putting themselves and the community at risk. Okay? So we have to put down the nonsense. Knock out the foolishness. I don't care if you have to, make money at the grocery store. Bagging groceries and go to school. But we have got to stop this, OJ effect. Where the majority of us believe X, Y, and Z happened, and it happened because of this. Had those brothers not been, selling drugs, they probably wouldn't have had to deal with the police in that moment, and which probably wouldn't have led to the murder of those officers, which wouldn't have led to Woods being executed for his participation in that event. So, I'm thinking about the families of those officers that lost their lives in that moment. Okay, that's just responsible. Okay, we've got to bring back logic to our community. We've got to bring back education to our community. Education has to be a priority now. Party and bullshit has made education a distant second. We could scream at kids to go to school and learn, is one thing, but, having credentials, probably puts you in a stronger position of a stronger voice. So, don't, we've got to stop blaming everyone else, for, the things that, we can manage just by a paradigm shift in our thinking. I remember when Scheherazade Ali, said, in, one of her books, it could have been The Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman or The Black Woman's Guide to Understanding the Black Man. But she said, the black man the black woman is in a unique position. She can knock out the the sexual charge in the black community just by dressing differently. I believed her. Okay. When I look at, Facebook and I see a group of, chicks, dancing to a beat, and the hook, bitch, I need a Henny and a Plan B. Okay. And, listening to the way, these young girls talk, so recklessly and so, and so aimlessly, when it comes to interacting with, boys who you have allowed, to be a factor. Okay. Because, if you made the priority, kindness, if you made the priority responsibility, if you made the priority discipline in terms of those individuals who you gave your attention to, then, you wouldn't have the thought boy, who thinks he can, violate you and ravage you, because he brought over a eighth of Bali. You know what I'm saying? And, you got the game all the way backward. And a lot of those foolish boys are relying on you having the game backwards, which is why, we continue to, practice illogical behavior. Steve Harvey literally said on his morning show that, Governor Ivey was evil because of her decision. Okay. After 9 courts had already approved the decision by the court, to execute him. She reviewed the case thoroughly herself, as what she says, and then she renders a decision. She's evil, or is that just everything Republican being associated with evil? You see, I'm not going to buy that consciousness. Okay, so I plan on running this podcast all the way up to the election, in support, of my ideology, that it is important for black people to strengthen their vote moving forward. And the best way to strengthen our vote moving forward is to cut our ties with the Democratic Party, align ourselves with the party in power, support that power the next 4 years, get what we can to rebuild our community, and focus on educating our community, enlightening our community over the next 4 years. And watching and taking notes and articulating the fact that if we are duped by the Republican Party, after aligning ourselves consciously with that party, okay, I'm gonna tell you like Malcolm told, anytime you throw your weight behind a political party that controls 2/3 of the government, that party doesn't keep the promises that it made to you during election time, and you're dumb enough to continue to walk around identifying yourself with that party, then you are not only a chump, but you are a traitor to your race. That is exactly what Malcolm said, and he was talking about Democrats. Okay, so again, this podcast is The Angry Black Republican. We will be up and, running throughout the election cycle, pushing the message of, and let's be clear, this is an unapologetically black platform. I am committed to the healing and the character building of the black family. Okay, that does not mean I'm against any other cultural family. I'm just trying to help in the healing of our wounds. So peace out. One angry black Republican. Thank you for tuning in. Next week's episode will be uploaded on my YouTube page. I will, tag
many of you in this video. Thanks.